Ecology is the scientific study of the relations that living organisms have respect to each other in the natural environment. Business environment. The environment of any organization is the aggregate of all conditions, events, and influence that surround and affect it.
Business and ecology. To deal with the issue of companies' environmental responsibility, one must recognize that business operates within an ecological system. When it utilizes energy and materials, discharges waste, and generates products and services. Refers to the science of the interrelationships among organisms and environments. In ecological matters, ecology is used term ecosystem to refer community and living organisms. An example of ecosystem is a pond. Assume that the area where the pond is located undergoes a severe shortage, or someone begins to fish there regularly, or the plant pesticides may spray into it. Damage to a particular form of plant life may mean that fewer fish can lie in the pond. A change in the pond's ecosystem may also affect other ecosystems. In its role as a major instrument of production, business must intrude into ecosystems. Not all intrusions are justifiable. Rather, business must avoid damaging the environment.
The dimensions of sociological problem. A social problem is a type of behavior that many people believe is harmful. Some conditions clearly hurt people, such as lacking enough money to buy basic food, shelter, and clothing. This illustrates that any social problem has two important components, which is the objective and subjective element. Objective element is the reality of the conditions of poverty, the reality of insufficient access to food, health services, and education, while subjective element of poverty is the level of public concern about these objective conditions, the desire to elevate them, and the belief that this is possible. Let us now define what is social structure. Rowe in 2019 defined the social structure as the expression for relatively stable patterns of social behavior and relationships among people that means how a society is organized. Social structure has two components, which is the social institution and social stratification. Social institution is a continuing pattern of social relationships intended to fulfill people's basic needs, while social stratification refers to inequality among people about important social factors including access to education, income, and many more. Whereas social structure refers to how society is organized, culture refers to the knowledge, ways of thinking, and shared understandings of behavior and physical objects that characterize a people's way of life. The elements of culture particularly important for understanding social problems are values, norms, beliefs, and symbols.
Traditional attitudes of business towards the environment. Several related attitudes prevalent in our society in general and in business in particular have led to or increased our environmental problems. One of these is the tendency to view the natural world as free and unlimited good, that is, as something we can exploit, even squander, without regard to the future. Traditionally, business has considered the environment to be a free, virtually limitless good. In other words, air, water, land, and other natural resources from coal to animals were seen as available for business to use as it saw fit. Pollution uses up clean air and water just as extraction uses up the minerals or oil in the ground. The belief that both sorts of resources are unlimited and free promotes wasteful consumption of them. In sum, then, spillovers or externalities pursuit of private interest at the expense of the commons and a view of environment as a free good that can be consumed without limit have combined with an ignorance of ecology and of the often fragile interconnections and interdependencies of the natural world to create the serious environmental problems facing us today.
Environment. Everything we depend on, whether it be the trees that give us oxygen, the land we live on often, and the rivers that provide us with water. Government must initiate programs to ban the use of hazardous products such as plastic carry bags. Consumers, workers, and society can support environmental protection by not using the hazardous products or other products that are not environmental friendly. Environmental ethics is the discipline in philosophy that studies the moral relationships of human being to and also the value and moral status of the environmental and its non-human contents. It is often said to be morally wrong for a human being to pollute and destroy of the natural environment and to consume a whole proposition of the planet's natural resources.
Ethicists argue that businesses need to look beyond profit motive and legal regulations to find more persuasive reasons for environmental responsibility. Therefore, we should consider three of these theories. The first theory is anthropocentric, which view that all environmental responsibility is derived from human interest alone. Next theory is animal rights view. On this view, animals qualify as morally significant creatures and deserve equal moral considerations. The last theory is ecocentrism, which is that we have direct responsibilities to environmental collections such as animal species and rainforests. Each of the theories has different implications on business responsibilities to the environment. Anthropocentric perspective, businesses have an obligation not to damage the environment in ways that negatively impact on human life. Animal rights perspective, businesses have an obligation to avoid harming animals either directly or indirectly. Ecocentric perspective, businesses have a direct obligation to protect the environment since it is wrong to harm members of the moral community.
The moral and social obligation of business to the environment. All duties have a moral dimension. Duties create obligation and expectation. There are two basic forms of duty, prohibition and requirements. Prohibition specifies things we may or should not do. Requirements specifying things we must or should do. Moral obligation arise from three sources: law, promises, and principles. The first one is law-based moral obligation. Good citizens have a moral as well as a legal obligation to abide by laws. It is a part of the assumed social contract of a civilized society. The second one is promise-based moral obligation. The second source of moral obligation is based on a promise or agreement. The third one is a moral principle as the basis of moral obligation. The third source of moral obligation is a moral principle, a standard of conduct that exists irrespective of law or agreements.
As our world is continuously evolving, signs of environmental deterioration and depletion are gradually gaining intensity as well. On account of this, different industries suggested new approaches to support environmental conservation. The Valdez Principles, subsequently called as Ceres Principles, are a set of 10 guidelines designed to regulate and monitor the conduct of corporations in matters relating to the environment. Valdez Principles were created in 1989 after the worldwide outcry towards environmental consequences of Exxon Valdez oil spill. The Valdez Principle acts as a guide in making moral corporate decisions and practices without neglecting its possible effect towards environment. These sets of guidelines are as follows.
1. Protection of the biosphere. It aims to eliminate any substance that may cause environmental damage to the earth. 2. Sustainable use of natural resources. To preserve biodiversity and conserve natural resources. 3. Reduction and disposal of waste. Waste should be handled through safe and responsible method. 4. Wise use of energy. To save energy by using it efficiently. 5. Risk reduction. The preparedness over emergencies through operating safe technologies. 6. Marketing safe products and services to provide non-chemical products to the consumers. 7. Damage compensation. The corporation will take responsibility of any harm that might cause to the environment by giving effort to help it restore. 8. Disclosure. The act of publicly disclosing any incidents in operation that causes environmental harm. 9. Environmental directors and managers. One member from the management will be qualified to implement these principles. And last, 10. The assessment and audit. They will conduct a public self-evaluation of their progress and comply all applicable laws and regulations.
In 1996, Abeda became the first beauty company to adopt the Ceres Principles. Other early Ceres signatories include American Airlines, Bank of America, Coca-Cola, Dell, and others. Why companies should adopt the Valdez Principles? According to Mary Ellen West in her journal Environmental Law and Review 1992, there are 4 main advantages to a corporation that agrees to adopt the Valdez Principles. Number 1. The positive publicity that substantially could help a corporation image in the eyes of its shareholders and consumers in this age of green consumerism. Number 2. Corporation would experience reduced costs associated with waste, hauling fees, coupled with potential revenues generated by recycling in accordance with the principles. Number 3, corporations that voluntarily strengthen the environmental standards may avoid financially devastating environmental disasters. Lastly, number 4, favorable investment in that corporation by the serious members.